Hello. Thank you for watching the Student Academic Success Department's presentation on formulating a concise thesis statement. It is important first to determine the purpose and scope of your paper before formulating a thesis statement. Consider what information you are asked to present, and subsequently, what limitations will guide your writing. It's important to determine not only what you will cover in the paper, but also what you will not cover. Otherwise, you leave yourself susceptible to a wide variety of arguments. It is important to stay focused on what your topic is, determine what you will address and what you won't, and determine what your reader should expect to know or understand after finishing your paper. If you don't narrow your focus before writing, your reader will be left feeling confused and as though the topic has not been fully addressed. When you begin formulating your thesis statement, there are a few things that you should keep in mind. Your thesis should meet the following criteria. First, it should set the stage for what the reader should expect from the rest of the paper. Your thesis statement really sets the scene and lets the reader know what will be addressed in the paper and what they can expect for the remainder of your writing. Your thesis statement should function in a way that makes a claim or an argument. Depending on the nature of your paper, you might be summarizing an observation if your paper is more informative and less argumentative. But typically, you're making some sort of claim in the thesis. Your thesis statement should be 1 or 2 sentences and should be somewhere near the introduction of your paper. Some teachers like it to be the last sentence of the first paragraph, but some are flexible with where you include it in the paper. It's also important that you use specific language that is succinct and direct. You don't want your thesis statement to be confusing, and you also don't want your reader to have a plethora of questions after reading it. They'll have some questions naturally because you haven't explained everything that you will explain throughout the rest of your paper. However, the point of the thesis and the point of the writing in general should be clear after the reader reads the thesis statement. There are also a few things that your thesis statement should not do. It should not contain vague language. If you need more help determining whether your thesis has vague language or concrete language, you can see our Avoiding Vague Language workshop. Also, you don't want to start your thesis statement with "my opinion" or "I think." You should just state your thesis statement as a fact. In the context of your paper, it is a fact. And so you don't want to use personal pronouns that make your thesis sound less concrete and less confident. Lastly, you do not want your thesis to express a multitude of ideas that are not all addressed in your paper. This goes back to the first slide where we discussed the fact that you should not write beyond your capacity. You need to determine at the beginning of the assignment, when you first start working on it, what you will cover and what you won't. You don't want to include anything in your thesis that you're not going to cover later on in the paper. Otherwise, this will leave your reader with questions, and it also damages your credibility if you're not following up and addressing everything in your thesis later on in your paper. Think of your thesis like a preview. It's a trailer to show your reader exactly what's going to happen next. We're going to look at some examples to help you understand what some weak thesis statements look like and why, and then what some strong ones look like and what makes them strong. I've separated these by category. So first we're going to look at a lack of specificity. The weak thesis statement reads, "World hunger has many causes and effects." This is a weak thesis statement for a couple of reasons. First, world hunger in general can't be discussed thoroughly in 7 to 10 pages. Second, many causes and effects is a vague statement. You should be able to identify what the causes and effects are. So if we were to take this thesis statement and make it stronger, we might say, hunger persists in Glandulinia because jobs are scarce and farming in the infertile soil is rarely profitable. So we've narrowed down world hunger, which is very broad and encompasses a lot, down to hunger specifically in a particular region. This is very effective because if you just say world hunger, then it's expected that you'll be addressing world hunger at large throughout the rest of your paper. And that very well might not be true. Second, we've addressed specifically what the cause and effects are so that our reader knows what's going to happen through the rest of the paper, and we also set ourselves up to have a clear and concise argument instead of a broad one. The next topic we're going to look at is expressing multiple ideas. The example of a weak thesis statement says, companies need to exploit the marketing potential of the internet, and web pages can provide both advertising and customer support.